In recent days, Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary under President Donald Trump, has made a series of bold statements that are capturing attention and stirring political debates. From firing back at Senator Chuck Schumer's controversial criticism of President Trump, to defending the performance of the DOJ team and clarifying Elon Musk's role in ongoing projects. Leavitt's remarks are shaking up the conversation. With investigations still unfolding, Leavitt remains a fierce defender of the Trump administration's policies, asserting strong positions on issues of public concern. Stay tuned for a closer look at how these explosive statements are making waves in Washington.
Isn't it rich that The View is saying she got the job based on looks when DEI is all about based on looks?
They really don't like this woman. She's a good communicator. And so Joy Behar just offered her analysis on why.
On February 18, 2025, a Delta Airlines flight originating from Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport crash-landed at Toronto Pearson International Airport. The incident resulted in the aircraft overturning upon landing, leading to injuries among the 80 passengers on board. Notably, 18 individuals sustained injuries, with 3 in critical condition. Despite the severity of the crash, all passengers survived. In the aftermath of the incident, political figures engaged in a debate regarding the potential causes. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, DNY, attributed the crash to workforce reductions at the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, during President Donald Trump's administration. Schumer expressed concerns that these layoffs, including those of safety specialists, compromise aviation safety. He emphasized that the FAA's responsibility for inspecting aviation equipment remained crucial, regardless of the flight's destination. Schumer's remarks were disseminated through social media platforms, where he stated, "The flight took off from Minneapolis. The FAA was still responsible for inspecting the aviation equipment, and Trump just let go of FAA safety specialists." In response, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt criticized Schumer's assertions, labeling them as incredibly irresponsible, given that investigations were still underway. Leavitt pointed out that Canadian air traffic controllers were responsible for directing the Delta flight at the time of the crash, not the FAA. She emphasized that attributing the incident to the FAA's workforce reductions was premature and unfounded. The debate highlights the complexities of aviation safety and the challenges in attributing causality in such incidents. While Schumer's concerns reflect broader apprehensions about the impact of workforce reductions on safety, Leavitt's response underscores the importance of awaiting thorough investigations before assigning blame. As the investigation into the Toronto plane crash continues, it remains essential to rely on factual findings to understand the incident's causes fully. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt recently defended the efforts of the DOJ, Department of Government Efficiency team, commending their work and highlighting the leadership of both President Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Leavitt's comments came in the wake of ongoing discussions surrounding the performance of the team, particularly in relation to allegations of inefficiency and lack of accountability within the federal bureaucracy. She asserted that the actions taken by Trump and Musk were exactly in line with what Democrats had long promised: to tackle the pervasive issues of waste, fraud, and corruption within the government. According to Leavitt, Trump and Musk's collaboration on government reform initiatives through the DOJ team represented a bold and effective approach to addressing systemic inefficiencies that had plagued the federal bureaucracy for years. She pointed out that both men had shown an unwavering commitment to reducing government waste, ensuring that taxpayer money was being spent more responsibly, and rooting out fraudulent practices that often go unchecked within large government systems. Leavitt emphasized that these efforts were not only in line with the promises made by Democrats during past election cycles, but were also a reflection of the administration's dedication to enhancing transparency, efficiency, and accountability within federal agencies. She argued that Trump and Musk were doing exactly what many progressive politicians had advocated for, yet struggled to implement themselves when given the opportunity to enact change. In Leavitt's view, the DOJ team's work exemplified the kind of reform that had been promised for decades, but which had largely remained elusive due to entrenched political interests. Moreover, Leavitt rejected any claims that the DOJ team's performance had been anything less than exemplary. She pointed to several initiatives spearheaded by the team, including efforts to streamline bureaucratic processes, cut unnecessary spending, and hold agencies accountable for any misuse of resources. These actions, she contended, were necessary steps toward modernizing government operations and making them more responsive to the needs of the American people. Leavitt's remarks also served as a rebuke to critics who had downplayed the significance of the DOJ team's work or dismissed it as politically motivated. She made it clear that Trump and Musk's efforts were grounded in a genuine desire to create a more efficient and effective government, not just political posturing. In this light, Leavitt argued that the success of the DOJ team in addressing government inefficiencies should be recognized as a major achievement, one that reflected the administration's commitment to long-term, meaningful change in Washington. Leavitt's defense of the DOJ team underscores a broader narrative about the administration's approach to government reform, one that prioritizes accountability, efficiency, and the reduction of waste. By invoking the promises of past political leaders, particularly those from the Democratic Party, Leavitt framed Trump and Musk's work as a fulfillment of long-standing commitments to root out corruption and improve how government operates. In doing so, she positioned the DOJ team's actions not just as part of a specific political agenda, but as a necessary and overdue course correction for the federal bureaucracy. Ultimately, Leavitt's comments highlight the administration's firm belief in the importance of government reform and their ongoing efforts to ensure that the federal bureaucracy serves the people more effectively. By highlighting the accomplishments of the DOJ team and the leadership of Trump and Musk, Leavitt reinforced the narrative that these actions represent a critical step in the fight against inefficiency and corruption in Washington. In response to growing questions about Elon Musk's involvement in the DOJ, Department of Government Efficiency project, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt issued a detailed clarification, emphasizing that Musk's role was strictly advisory and that the DOJ team itself held no legal authority in terms of enacting policy or making binding decisions. Leavitt's comments came after several Democratic lawmakers expressed concerns about the influence Musk could potentially exert over the project and the government's operations. These concerns centered on the notion that Musk, a prominent business figure with significant influence over various sectors, might wield undue power in a federal initiative that could affect government efficiency and accountability. Leavitt took the opportunity to address these concerns directly, stressing that while Musk had provided valuable expertise and insight, particularly in terms of streamlining operations and fostering innovation within large organizations, his involvement was limited to providing advice rather than exercising any formal decision-making authority. According to Leavitt, Musk's contributions were purely consultative and designed to offer guidance based on his extensive experience in leading successful, high-efficiency ventures. She further clarified that, despite Musk's involvement, the DOJ team did not have the legal authority to implement changes or make policy decisions on its own. Instead, the team's role was centered around recommending strategies to improve government efficiency, which would still require approval from appropriate legislative or executive bodies to be enacted. This clarification came in the wake of criticism from Democrats who had raised alarms about Musk's potential influence over federal operations, given his high profile and extensive ties to industries like space exploration, electric vehicles, and technology. Some critics suggested that Musk's involvement could lead to conflicts of interest or questions about the motivations behind the government's decision to involve a private sector billionaire in a public project. Concerns were also raised about whether Musk's business interests might align too closely with the government's reform efforts, possibly creating a situation where private companies could stand to benefit unduly from government initiatives. In her response, Leavitt pushed back against these concerns, framing the collaboration between Musk and the DOJ team as part of a broader bipartisan effort to address long-standing inefficiencies in the federal bureaucracy. She pointed out that the goal of the project was to bring fresh, innovative ideas into government operations, and that the inclusion of business leaders like Musk was intended to inject practical, real-world solutions into a system that had long been criticized for its sluggishness and lack of accountability. Leavitt emphasized that this collaboration was in line with the administration's focus on reducing government waste, improving transparency, and holding federal agencies accountable for their spending. Leavitt also acknowledged the concerns raised by Democrats, but sought to reassure them that there were sufficient safeguards in place to prevent any inappropriate influence or overreach by Musk or any other external advisor. She explained that while Musk's insights were valued, all decisions regarding the implementation of DOG's recommendations would remain firmly within the bounds of established legal and governmental processes. In other words, any changes or reforms would require full consultation with lawmakers and would be subject to the necessary checks and balances inherent in the federal system. This statement served to put to rest some of the growing apprehension regarding Musk's participation in the DOG project, clarifying his role and reinforcing the message that the project was focused solely on improving the efficiency and effectiveness of the federal government. Leavitt's explanation reflected the administration's commitment to transparency and its belief that involving experts from various sectors, including business, could be a key factor in driving meaningful reform in Washington. Nonetheless, she made it clear that the ultimate responsibility for making decisions and enacting changes would always rest with the appropriate government bodies, and not with any individual advisor, regardless of their stature or influence in the private sector. Karoline Leavitt once again addressed Senator Chuck Schumer's comments, reiterating her earlier response and emphasizing the irresponsibility of making such claims while investigations into the matter were still ongoing. Leavitt underscored that jumping to conclusions before all the facts were established not only undermined the investigative process, but also misled the public. She further stressed that it was crucial to allow the proper authorities to conduct their inquiries thoroughly before assigning blame or making definitive statements. Leavitt's remarks served as a reminder that rushing to judgment in the midst of an active investigation could hinder efforts to uncover the truth and create unnecessary confusion. These comments highlight Leavitt's strong defense of the Trump administration's policies and actions, while also responding to the ongoing political and public scrutiny surrounding figures such as Senator Schumer and Elon Musk. Leavitt's remarks reflect her commitment to supporting the administration's decisions and challenging what she views as premature or misleading criticisms. In doing so, she navigates the complex landscape of political debate, where high-profile figures and their actions often face intense scrutiny, while also emphasizing the importance of allowing investigations and processes to unfold without interference.